Good evening, everyone, and welcome here to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of race number 2, season 58 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. As we're ready to go, super speedway racing under the lights. This is Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. We're going to be alternating between Talladega and BSR during the course of this season. It's basically a Talladega layout reskinned and should bring about the same type of racing that we've seen at the normal Talladega track season after season. I'm Seth Cole, being joined by Jessica Shelton. And Jess, last week we saw really interesting season opener. We ended up seeing a lot of big ones, especially on the back straightaway. When the dust finally settled, it came down to fuel mileage at the end. We had about a half dozen drivers running out of fuel between turns 1 and 2, all the way back to the start-finish line, and John Godfrey picking up the victory to, at this point in time, secure himself a spot in the playoffs. But the interesting thing was, we kind of expected a kind of ultra-aggressive race since everybody was starting at the same starting point. Now that they've been able to accumulate points, figure out where they are in the standings, we think, all right, now they'll settle in and they'll kind of plan accordingly. But from what we heard from some of the drivers last week, they're expecting to see just as aggressive a race this week as we saw last week.
Yeah, we heard that, but the way that the format is now, knowing that, 8 races before the playoffs start, and only a specific amount of drivers get in, they're not just chilling anymore. Oh, well, I gotta win, and then I'm just going to chill because I'm locked in. No, they actually want to go out there and get another win so they can actually cement themselves in without any worry, because 8 races, I mean, that's a little bit of a short period of time, and you got quite a few good drivers. And you alluded to it a moment ago, we had a bad last lap where we saw people like Grant Wesley, Bob Seminara, they ran out of fuel. They fell back there, and now, let's see, I believe Seminara finished, and Grant Wesley finished 34th, Seth, and Seminara and Tim Novsker finished 26th. Seminara finished 21st, or I believe that's what it says. But it's like, these guys, they were up there. They had a shot to win this, and then all of a sudden it was gone. They got a little bit of a hole to dig out of, and, well, we've known that Grant Wesley can dig himself out of the hole, but there's only so many drivers and so many spots to do that with for what's available, Seth.
And there's a lot of drivers gunning for those limited number of spots as well. 38 drivers going to be taking the green flag here tonight. That's almost a full field. So very early on in the season, the points are close together. So while you can gain a huge amount of positions in the stands here tonight with a good run subsequently, if you had a good run in last week's first race of the season, you suffer a DNF, you can free fall down through the point standings here tonight, as well as Wiley Coate via the random draw. He's going to be the pole sitter here tonight in that bright green Castrol GTX Dodge. He'll be alongside of Brian Schilling, who'll be the outside of the front row. Tim Novsker and Bernie Mobbs, they're going to make up row number 2. Row 3 finds Mike Rogers and Mark Paglia. Joe DeSpirito, Josh Metallic, they're row 4, and the top 10 will be completed by Grant Wesley and Tom Dixon. Jim Gloud and Doug Kulick, they make up row 6. Row 7, David Cannon and Glenn Harris. 15th starting spot will be Jeff Crivello alongside of Ron Hagelin. Dante Rickey, nice to see him back in the field, making his first start on the season. First start in quite a while. He'll be alongside Kyle Lawson in row 9. Terry Bombard and Donnie Garrett, they'll complete the top 20. Jason Scheck, he'll roll off 21st alongside of Sonny Tallman. Bob Seminara, you talked about him. He's going to be starting pretty deep in the field. 23rd alongside of Kelly Causey. In the 25th position is where we find Tate Dorsey. He's making his first start of the season. I believe it might be the first start in his Tally Challenge career. Not 100% on that, but he'll be alongside of Jeremy Jeffries. Keith Hughes, know him by name, raced with him before, but have yet to my recollection, see him in a Tally Challenge field. So I believe he's making his debut. He'll be alongside of Cy Jones. That'll be in row 14. And completing the top 30 will be Chuck McClure and Richard Martin. Back in row 16, Dave Melson and Rodney Sullins. Wayne Pribnow going to make up 34th or 33rd position rather, with Bobby Farrell in 34th. Ken Roberts will be back in row 18 with Robbie Nices. John Godfrey, after his victory last week, he's starting almost shotgun on the field. He'll be 37th place here tonight alongside of Bob Dixon. That's the 38-car field. And just want to say, really nice to see Jason Scheck in the field here tonight. A bit of a scare in the early portions of this week. Understood he suffered a grade 3 concussion. It was questionable whether he was going to be able to race here tonight, but that 44 is on the grid. It is getting ready to take the green flag here tonight, so nice to see that he's able to race here this evening after the reports we got earlier on in the week. But here we go. It's not difficult to see under the lights that neon green number 5, and Wiley Coates going to be the one to bring us down to green. 66 laps of racing here at Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway. Mentioned the fact this is basically a reskinned Talladega. Are we going to see a lot of the characteristics of what Talladega has been in the past, where the inside line's optimal on the restarts, but everybody's going to start migrating to that middle line?
Well, I feel it's going to be the same thing that we see usually in the Talladega Challenge. The only thing I can say is this track, it usually throws me for a curve. And what I mean by that is I'll sit here and I'll be running, I've ran this track a few times, and it's like, it's supposed to be just Talladega, just, you know, night with blue balls, right? Different name. However, when you're on the track, it feels different. It doesn't feel like Talladega. It feels like it's a complete different track altogether, but it's just the same. I mean, I feel like we're going to get the same amount of racing, but based on the first race, they might take it a little bit easier, a little bit more cautiously than what they did last time. I mean, we're side by side all the way down. I haven't seen that third line come in yet, so that must be a good sign that they're trying to fill this out, I think.
Might be just me as well visually. Ooh, Jason Scheck. Not sure if he got loose or if he's actually bailing out to drop to the back in that 44, but it almost looks like they're going a little bit faster, and that could be due to the nighttime conditions. Nighttime conditions, the track a little bit cooler, a little bit more grip, and so the speeds pick up as Jim Gloud gets down there on the apron. So a couple of drivers here having some handling problems in the early going.
Third lane already forming up there, Seth. This is roughly around the 20th position. Kelly Causey leading that top side. 3 wide right now with the 90 machine, and then there's 77 of Donnie Garrett. Well, we got a little bit more on what's going on with Donnie Garrett in a little bit when we take our moment to discuss the sponsorships, huh?
Yep, there's somebody else that jumped up there with Kelly Causey and Chuck McClure as well. I'm trying to make out who that is. That might possibly be the 6 of Kyle Lawson. Leading that third lane.
Schilling's in the lead now. Bernie Mobbs pushing the Schilling.
Got a Chevy, a Dodge, and a Ford all lined up there, nose to tail in that middle line.
Yeah, 3 wide, quite a few rows back. I mean, I kind of figured they would just relax and just ride a little bit, but I was sorely mistaken, wasn't I? I mean, they're really trying to get at it already, Seth.
And look who's now up in that third line leading it. Doug Hewlick, who was only about, 100 feet away from maybe picking up the victory last week. Yeah, and ran out of fuel, was sputtering coming to the line, got taken 3 wide by John Godfrey and Rodney Sowens. He finished third, but that's the second race in the last 2 seasons we've seen him almost close to picking up that win, but the fuel tank just not enough to be able to get him to the line.
And I was serious when we did the interview, Seth. His time is coming. And he'll eventually get one.
Oh, absolutely.
But last week just wasn't his calling card, unfortunately. Bates decided to have a little bit of a different idea in store for the driver of the 23 machine. But, Seth, I got a question. Where would you want to be at right now with this being a... I mean, we know this track, technically, but with this track, where would you want to be at? Would you want to be right in the back? Would you want to be in the front? Would you just... Like, or are you just trying to get to that first set of pit stops? That's the only thing you're looking for, or what?
Honestly, I think maybe I'd like to be at the front. I think Brian Schilling's in a good spot right now based on the fact that his row is really the only row that's not 3 wide right now. A couple of drivers back there I noticed that either started at the back or dropped to the back. They're in danger of losing the draft. Wayne Pribnow started pretty close to the rear of the field, and he is trying to keep in touch with this lead group. And we saw that out-of-shape moment for Jason Scheck in turn 2. He has dropped way back. He's now almost 3 seconds behind the next highest car. So I almost wonder if at the back might not be the best place to be, because if you think back to last week, mentioned the 2 big ones we had on the back straightaway, a lot of drivers that were at the back, they were trying to find a way through, but there's just so many moving parts and pieces when many trucks up at the front are spinning out. Sometimes that door's just not open for you.
Yeah, but it doesn't take much for these guys to sort themselves out. Like right now, we got a high side and a bottom, and we know at a 3 wide position at Talladega, usually the bottom is a little bit better, and the high side will come a little bit strong, and then all of a sudden it'll sort itself out where the middle line will start becoming more dominant. meaning that if you're leading, you got a car up underneath you. I mean, technically your lead's gone at that point for 3 wide, so technically you're gonna be going to the back, and that's not fun. So I mean, you figure out, do you want to be up front for pit stops to manage yourself, or if you're in the back, I mean, the only way you can go is to the front. Be more cautious, more careful if you're on that bottom in case a wreck does end up happening. But you just never know. That's what makes these plate tracks so exciting, is that there's always something different, a different scenario pops in. And it looks like there was a little bit of crowding up there at the front there, Seth, 3 wide.
Yeah, Tim Nofsker made a jump to the outside of Wiley Cope for second, and Joe DeSpirito went with him. They're now moving along with Mark Paglia to the front of the field. And I was going to bring up the fact that when the top 5 basically got clear of, I think it was Jim Glaude, they all moved down to the inside line. And I wondered, has the game kind of changed here in what we're used to seeing at Talladega? But then as soon as that middle line started forming up again, everybody's migrated back up there between the white hash marks. So it almost looks like, just depending on the momentum, the inside line and the middle line can move. It just comes down to the numbers game, really.
Seth, if they get clear, the question is, do you just want to control that middle line? Because with them going 3 wide, that bottom is going to get a little bit of a run. It looks like the high side on that third lane seems to be wanting to move. The corners, these turns, that inside line gains momentum, but then on the straightaways, this third lane is what's going to be getting them. But you look at these guys back here, Seth. You've got the machine of Dave Melson. You got Rodney Sullivan in the middle here. Glenn Harris in the 8 machine. And in front of him, a little ways, you have Bob Seminara. Seminara went to the bottom this time, but it's like they were right there and they were losing the draft. That's another thing you gotta be concerned about, is when they get clear, if you ain't got nobody behind you and you're clear, I mean, you're going to the back. I don't know what it is about the setup, but I mean, it's a good setup, don't get me wrong, but it's just that there's no one behind you. Doesn't matter if you're side by side, several rows deep, and you got more cars just behind you on the high side and the middle line on the other lines that you're not running. You're going to lose draft. You're going to fall back, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, we've seen that many times, especially too if the field starts getting single filed out and you're that last truck in that pack, then more than likely you're going to end up losing the draft. Now with them double wide and 3 wide, you see back there, I think it's the 45 of Tom Dixon. He's at least been able to kind of stay in touch with this group. Was watching this third lane being led by Jeremy Jeffries, and all of a sudden he's only got Doug Hulick there to help him. A couple of drivers ducking down to that middle line. Mentioned the fact that last week, first race of the season, points handed out for the first time here in season 58, so things are really close. Point stands coming to this race. Obviously, John Godfrey, the points leader, 5 points back. The runner-up finisher, Rodney Sullivan, 6 points back, Doug Hulick. Richard Martin is 7 back in 4th. Jeremy Jeffries is 8 back in 5th. Brian Schilling, he's 9 back in 6th. And then it's Kelly Causey, Greg Palmer, Bernie Mobbs, and Joe DeSpirito that are actually the top 10 in the point standings. But you talked about a lot of those drivers that were up there towards the front that ran out of fuel, did not get the points paying day they were looking for, like Grant Wesley, like Bob Seminara. This has to be a race that they're looking at of, okay, I lost points last week. It was based off of a gamble. Here tonight, I've got to gain those points back because, again, we keep stressing it, and I feel like we're going to continue to do this until the playoffs begin. Only 8 regular season races. This is a thing unheard of. This has never happened before in the Tally Challenge. It's usually been 10 regular season races. At one point, it ended up getting whittled down to 9, but now we are at the lowest amount of regular season races there has ever been. The urgency is definitely there, especially for those drivers, those big-name drivers that did not get off to the start they were looking for last week.
Real quick, I just was scrolling through, and I realized that Wayne Primnell apparently took his machine out of the race manually, so he's calling it a night early. I'm guessing it's because he might have blown a gear, or maybe he just wasn't having a good time based on not having a lot of draft at that point. I don't know, but he's gone, Seth. I'm sorry to interrupt on that.
It looks like he retired at the race about 3 laps ago. He had lost the draft. So it may have been a mechanical problem, or to your point, might have just been the fact that decided that since he had lost the draft and more than likely would have gone a lap down to the oncoming field, just calling it an early night. Jason Scheck right now, according to my telemetry, he's still about half a lap behind the field, so it'll be a bit before they would catch him and put him a lap down. We might actually reach our first round, potentially, of green flag pit
You're
stops before they
jinxing
catch
it,
him.
you know that.
Slightly up. That's another thing that I was actually going to bring up, though. It's a good segue because I was watching these drivers in practice and I wondered, what kind of characteristics from Talladega were going to carry over here to BSR. Pit road was the big question mark, and when I saw a number of these drivers, I think it was a good pack of 10 to 15 drivers, all tried coming to pit road together, and they didn't make it. I'm almost wondering, is this going to be the same way to approach pit road at BSR as it was at Talladega, or are they going to have to change things up a little bit?
Well, you don't want to come in with the whole pack in front of you. I mean, you don't want to lose the draft, but you don't want the whole pack right there, There's a good chance to get ran over or a little contact or however, because you have to communicate, hey, I'm coming in. Are you coming in low? I'm going to go in high. And then you got to figure out how high they're going to be, how low they're going to be, and then you got to watch for people making accidental mistakes in front of you and behind you to where you might get involved one way or the other. Someone could hit someone else, and the back end could hit your vehicle, and that could be 4 or 5 trucks back. I mean, with the way this pit road is, Seth, if you watch coming off a turn 4 ride with anyone you want, it randomly, you got the yellow line just straight there, and then all of a sudden it curves real quick, and then you can see the white line where pit road actually starts right there at the first stall.
We're looking at Josh Metallic leading that outside line. Metallic is tied for 12th coming into this race, along with Bobby Farrell. Had a decent outing last week in the season opener, and a couple of drivers that I'm noticing that have made their way through the field pretty quickly after they didn't exactly have the best of qualifying efforts. One driver in particular I see is the 55 of Ken Roberts. He's about to crack the top 10 as he's on that outside line there. You see 2 orange trucks side by side. He's the outside line truck, the inside line truck. I believe that's David Cannon. And Ken Roberts started this race all the way back from 36th. What kind of interests me in that is the fact that we've seen in the past drivers that start outside of the top 25, top 30, they're able to get up into the top 10, top 5 within about 5 or 6 laps. A lot of these drivers that I'm noticing that have gained positions, it's taken them a little longer to be able to do that. So is it the case of, since there are so many trucks in the field, you have to be a little bit more patient for your line to move? Is it the fact that there seems to be more viable options, an inside line and a middle line that are able to move? I'm not certain. Or could it just be the fact that they felt that there was maybe going to be a wreck with the 3 wide several rows deep that we saw, and they decided, we're going to kind of play this by ear, wait and see if things settle out, and then we'll move forward.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if I was like around that area, like, yeah, they're going 3 wide. I think I want to, I'm not too sure about this. My best bet at that point is go to the back or get to the bottom as quickly as possible. I'm just not going to deal with it because if there's a wreck, I mean, it's not a lot, but you have that little apron, little extra room to go down there to avoid a wreck if you have to. But because usually what happens is that wreck, it'll go up against the wall, step near the wall for a few moments. But I mean, I don't know. They made their choice. They're side by side now. I'm guessing they're getting ready for this round of pit stop because we're on lap 17 going on 18 south, and I'm going through the field a little bit, and I'm noticing some. We got some pit stops already. We got Dixon's on the pit road already, Seth, making that
we
pit
talk
stop.
about the things that changes. How about the things that stay the same? Bob Dixon usually always off sequence with his strategy, coming to pit road a couple laps sooner. One thing we also know that's not going to change is the fuel window. Since this is a basically reskinned Talladega, 2.66 miles in length, it's still going to be that 19 to 21 fuel window that we're used to.
Yep, indeed, and we're coming up on it. There's going to be a lot more drivers pitting either this lap or next lap, indeed.
I'm seeing some radios lighting up here, I think. We're going to have some takers this time by.
Yeah, we're going to find out how well they made the stop here, and just going through this field here, they're just now getting around the 44 machine of Jason Scheck. I mean, this might be a little bit of a blessing in disguise for Jason if they end up wrecking and he gets caution.
Here we go. Let's see if they make it.
Whoa!
Oh, wow!
No
2
way down
cars
there.
just snapped loose. That was, I think, Sonny Tolman and Ron Hagelin. They pounded that inside.
And there are oh my God! There's a car on the track at Sonny. I think caution's out now.
I think you're right. I think the yellow flag is indeed out. Yep,
And what
Flagman
did
has
we
the
just
red
say
flag
about
at the entrance
Jason
of pit
Scheck?
road. Hey, he's going to get the
Jason
free
Scheck.
pass. Perfect timing for him.
And remember, Bob and Tom Dixon, they just pitted, so this is a saving grace. They might get a chance to stay out and lead a couple of extra laps, Seth.
I believe Bob Dixon and Tom Dixon did actually lose a lap on their pit stop. Bob is the highest running of the two, so he and Jason Scheck would be in line for the lucky dog, but no doubt that most everybody's going to come down pit road that didn't pit, so Tom Dixon should be able to stay out and take the wave around, I would think, here under this caution period as the field waiting for the pace car to pick them up. But man, it just seemed like as soon as you got on the brakes, it was the 111 and the 90. They just snapped left, and 90 of Sonny Tallman pounded that inside wall as we go back and take a look at the replay. Bobby Farrell, I know, got a piece of it. I believe David Cannon was involved. There were a couple of others that got slight bits and pieces, and we're all trying to kind of bob and weave to avoid all the trucks that were spinning out there.
Yeah, I was going to comment a little earlier before pit stop started about these neat little paint schemes. I mean, it's weird to see David Cannon driving something that's not Domino's. But
trying to get used to Bob Seminara's new colors too.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to talk about some of these new schemes that we were seeing, but it's just now it's kind of a unfortunate circumstance going through to look at these schemes now.
Martin, Cy Jones, they were involved. There's John Godfrey, last week's winner, just barely skating through. Mike Rogers, I don't believe was involved. He is able to come to a stop. I want to get another angle there because it looks like Hagelin might have gotten tagged from behind, maybe by the 7. I don't know if Sonny Tallman got some assistance or if he just loses it by himself. Let's take another angle here.
I'm right on board with Sonny. Let's see this real quick.
Oh no, that thing just snapped. Wow. We know these drivers are well versed in the art of hot pitting. I'm almost wondering if maybe the grip levels here tonight. Nighttime conditions means it's cooler, which means more grip on the racetrack, but it also means it's going to be a little slicker on pit road entry.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is the same correct Talladega, but it feels like a whole different animal. Like, if you ride with Sonny Tallman, and check him out real quick, so yeah, Cannon got hit a couple times there, but it's like, Sonny looks like he's just getting in line to come down pit road, then he kind of brakes so he doesn't run in the back of another truck in front of him, and just barely touching the brake, it just snaps to the left on him. Now, that could have been that LP file for the pit lane coming, I'm not really sure, but that thing just snapped to the left when he looked like he was trying to hit the brake so he didn't run over someone.
As we saw Ron Hagelin, he did get a little bit of assistance from Cy Jones behind. Here's the onboard with the Sirius satellite radio number 90 of Sonny Tallman. And yeah, just listen to the engine here as it's on the brakes. It almost looks like he pumped the brakes there. I think that was Ken Roberts ahead of him, and he almost ran into the back of the 55. I think then he went hard onto the brakes, and that's when the rear tires didn't take. I think if he hadn't been that close to the back bumper of the 55, been able to pump the brakes all the way to pit road, it might not have spun to the left as quickly as it did. So that's something drivers will have to have in the back of their minds, that if you're going to come onto pit road, you've got to come on a little bit more gingerly. You can't just stomp on the brakes and expect that that thing's going to stay pointing in the right direction.
Well, seconds on by, they're coming back down pit road, so.
Yeah, I see a number of drivers coming down again, more than likely to top off the fuel tank here in case we go into another long green flag run. Almost got the cycle of green flag pit stops completed here before the first caution flying. Tim Knopfsker won the battle off pit road. Looks like he's going to be the one to lead us back to green. Looks like Bob Dixon, Jason Scheck, they'll get the lucky dog, and Tom Dixon will take the wave around. So of our remaining 36 drivers, all 36 will be back on the lead lap. We'll be back here to the action in just a moment, but first, a word from our sponsor, Unlimited Garage Floors. The following presentation of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series on the Flatout Racing Network is brought to you by Ultimate Garage Floors. Ultimate Garage Floors is very active in the garage remodeling community, staying current with the latest technologies and custom configurations so that we can bring you the highest quality installations. As a Northern Virginia Exposy flooring installer, We focus on garages and commercial flooring to perfect our craft and bring you high results. In a space that gets as much wear and tear as your garage, you want to be able to trust that the cabinets and flooring we install are ready to withstand against high traffic and regular use. That is why we include a lifetime warranty with our services, so that you know we stand behind the quality of our work. To get started with a free consultation, call us at 540-931-9006 or visit us on the web at ultimategaragefloorsva.net. That's ultimategaragefloorsva.net. Should have the lights out atop the pace car this time by, giving us the 1 to green indication. Almost a third of the way through this race, but a lot more green flag racing in the early going of the second race of the season than we saw in the first race of the season. I have to wonder, is that in relation to the fact that points have been paid out, or in regards to this particular racetrack? I'm not certain. Maybe a combination of both.
Possibly both, but I mean, you saw how the first race went, so I mean, with this being a different racetrack, do they try to push it to get the max points at this point, or do they just need to ride? Because I'm looking at Bob Seminara. Seminara is back on pit road, and this is really this isn't really normal for the 712 to be doing this.
A little bit uncharacteristic. He was, I believe, last time they crossed the start-finish line in 33rd. So he's not giving up a whole lot of track position on this restart to be able to come down and top off that fuel tank. So far tonight, though, it has been all Tim Nofsker. Of the 21 laps we've completed, he's been out in front for 14 of them. The only other drivers that have taken a turn out in front, 3 laps led apiece for our pole sitter Wiley Coate as well as Brian Schilling, and then 1 lap led by Josh Metallic. Nofsker has led all the rest. And Tim Nofsker has been a multi-time winner, multiple seasons here in the Tally Challenge, trying to add his name to the list along with John Godfrey, trying to make their way into the playoffs via win. Again, though, too, it's 12 drivers via points. The top 12 in the point stands that make it into the playoffs. Any race winners, 13th on down through 25th, they would also make it into the playoffs. So we could have more than 12 drivers make it into the postseason. A lot of drivers kind of, when I think that announcement was made, they kind of set their goals of, either win their way in or point their way in, because we've seen drivers be able to point their way into the playoffs and be a contender. Kind of a case in point, Rodney Sellers a couple of seasons ago. He made it into the Final Four.
And I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I was in the, I made it to the Final Four with
That's right.
Grant, DeSpirito, and Seminara that one season, and I hadn't had any wins at all. It was just consistency.
It was season 45, if I remember correctly?
No. No, it was like, what? It was like, I think it was like 49.
49, yeah, you might be right. I don't even think...
50, something like
I
that.
don't even think I knew RTG existed back in season 45. I don't know what I'm thinking.
But we're back under green here, and I was going through the field a little bit, Seth, and we got our defending champion, Brian Schilling, back here, running around the 27th position, slowly making his way forward. They're going 3 wide in front of him now. Wiley Coate right in front of Schilling, and that was our pole sitter, and labeled back in 26 last time. Godfrey moved up a couple of spots on that inside line aside Jones there. David Cannon doesn't look like he's that off pace that much, so he must not have gotten any damage, if not anything at all, Seth. So that's at least something good for the 3 machine.
David Cannon, Bobby Farrell, I'd be surprised if any of those drivers aren't up to speed. I think they got very minimal damage and not really much to the front end. The couple of drivers I would be concerned about would be Ron Hagelin and Sonny Tallman, because they both went front end into the inside wall. Tallman the most, really.
Hagelin's right here on the outside of Godfrey, and it seems like he's moving forward. He's right there behind Jeremy Jeffries.
That's why I will never understand how moderate damage works at super speedway races, because so many times hits you think they're going to take them out of the race, they end up continuing on. And who was it? Was it was Brian Schilling. Yeah, it was Brian Schilling in the penultimate race last season. We're like, oh, he's not going to advance to the Final Four. It sounds like he's down a gear or he's got damage or something. And I think he finished in the top 5.
Yeah, and that's what I was about to say. This is why I like realistic damage. Why I ask you to always put it on. No, no, we gotta put moderate. No, okay. That things. You can't ever figure out what you want really based on whatever night you're gonna get. Sometimes it's really hectic, sometimes it's not. And moderate damage allows you to actually have a lot of fun and actually have a somewhat realistic race compared to realistic and no damage whatsoever. But anyway, getting back to the actual race event here, I want you to check out that 82 of Keith Hughes here, Seth. He's running pretty dang on decently right now in the top 20, making his way forward. I don't know what position this is right now, but he's battling with Donnie Garrett and Kelly Causey here behind Glenn Harris.
Was 17th last time by. He's, I think, around 13th this time by. Let's see when the ticker updates. Yes, they're P13. Look at that. Yeah, you mentioned Keith Hughes making his first start here in the series. And, you know, we've raced with him in the past. You've raced with him over in MOT. I've raced with him over in Maverick Cup. Very good super speedway racer, but not certain just exactly how many drivers in the field here he has experience with. I would assume that there's a few here in the field that he's raced with in the past, and that could be a blessing for him, and the fact he'll find people to work with and that will work with him, kind of make the adjustment easier than it would be for someone that's coming in not having a clue who any of these drivers are or their racing characteristics.
Well, he's making all the right decisions right now, not being too aggressively, not knocking anyone out of the way, not rubbing fenders or anything, just in his own little zone, and other people are going to take notice of that. They're going to sit there and say, hey, this guy can hold his line. He's not being too crazy or whatnot, and he's not too slow. So, you know, we'll work with him. And speaking of issues from earlier or anything with slowness and whatnot, Sheck is somewhat up to speed here. He's currently still right behind Bob Dixon. Looks like there's a gap between him and Dixon. I don't know if he's got any issues or if he's just trying to chill based on his real life issue earlier on. That might be what it is, Seth. He might be just trying to relax.
Maybe relax and just logging laps. You could be right. He did have that moment in the beginning stages of the race where I'm pretty certain he got loose and was saving it, and that's when he dropped back. I'm not certain if he was actually dropping back on purpose. Maybe he was, but when he did, he had so little momentum once the field got around him, he wasn't able to stay in touch. Got the lucky dog. It's back on the lead lap, but again, kind of just riding there at the tail end of the field as we've got an inside line forming here, but they're not making a whole lot of progress. That's a number of former champs lined up right there. The 24 of Despirito, the 88 of Grant Wesley, the 17, or make that the 38 rather, of Rodney Sullins. I thought that was the 17 of Chuck McClure. Talk about getting used to the new liveries. That looked so similar to the coloring of the Jack Daniels number 17, but that's the new colors in the Black Rifle Coffee Chevy Camaro. Silverado.
Yeah, make up your mind what it is, Seth. I mean, it could be a Chevy Camry for all we know, or it could be a Camry. Hey, it could even be what you created for me. It could be a Thunder King.
It could be that too.
But anyway,
I gotta figure out a clever way to combine Silverado and Camaro now.
I want you to take notice here. Bob Seminara was running about 21st, falling back, and then all of a sudden they got 3 wide. He started slowly reeling in a couple of drivers, and now he got a good run a moment ago and went right to the bottom to try to get behind his buddy Joe Despirito. But I just that high side, that third lane, Seth, it seems like that's where most of that momentum is. Unless you're out front by yourself, then it's that middle lane.
That's Keith Hughes leading that outside line now. A battle between himself and Glenn Harris. That'd be around the 11th position. He'll pick up that spot and almost thought about tucking back down in front. If he had gone down there, no doubt in my mind that Jeremy Jeffries would have stayed to his right rear panel and tried freight training around, but Keith will stay up top and now challenge Jeff Crivello in the 56 truck. Can report Sonny Tallman saw the damage he took, that hard hit front end first in the inside wall during that green flag pit stop. He has now taken his truck back to the garage. He will join Wayne Pribb now and will finish in the 36th position. I mentioned that there were 38 trucks that were scheduled to take the green. I've only got 37 currently on my running order. I believe I'm going to try and go through and see if I can figure out who the one that missed.
And this pack right here, 4th is Mike Rogers, and the people who are by themselves right now in 35th is Tom Dixon, but you go to Tom Dixon, there's a big gap from Tom Dixon to where Mike Rogers, and he's the last one in this huge pack. So I don't know where the 36th, 37th driver is.
That would be Dante Ricky, actually. I just noticed he was on the grid on the lineup, was slated to roll off 17th.
A little bit tight there between Wiley and Jim Gloutt there off that corner, Seth. That's something else we haven't talked about. Coming off that corner, you go 3 wide side by side. That bottom still pushes up, and that high side they're trying to hold that line a little bit. And we've seen some contact every once in a while off that corner. We got a little bit of a warp here from Tate Dorsey too in the Zero machine.
Yeah, that's a shame because I was going to mention, we were talking about Keith Hughes, Tate Dorsey making, to my knowledge, his debut here in the Tally Challenge, and he was actually right behind Keith Hughes, was working his way up into the top 15 before I started to see him shimmy a bit, and apparently that's gotten worse, and so he is either voluntarily or has been asked to drop to the back until that settles out, but it might not be the last we've seen of that Zero truck of Tate Dorsey, as now things have gotten double filed out. Kelly Causey's the lone truck there on the inside line as everybody's migrated to the middle and extreme outside line. Where'd that outside line go? All of a sudden there were like 7 or 8 trucks up there. Now there's only 3 with Hughes, Schilling, and McClure.
I do want to point out, you mentioned a moment ago that the Zero machine of Tate Dorsey may have been asked to move to the back for his warp or his lag or however you want to label it or netcode. But, that can easily go away, and then they can easily be in the talk at the very end. Remember a certain driver, Dylan Young, in a different series was having lag issues on, what was it, Tuesday? And ended up finishing pretty decently.
Did, you're right. Finishing, I believe it was in 5th.
I mean, if they get asked to drop to the back, or if they voluntarily go to the back because they feel they're warped, that's not at all the end of their race. That's not the end of their night at all, because they can come back from that. But,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's at least a good thing about these guys, that they give you the chance to drop to the back, stay in the draft, and then just, work it out and see what happens. Now we see this inside line coming up, Seth, being led by Jeremy Jeffries, and Bernie Mobbs is going to peek down there now.
Gabe Melson going to jump down there also. We'll see if anybody in that top 6 will see that line coming and maybe jump down there as well.
So they've caught the lap machine of Tom Dixon now to Knoxgrass, and I don't know where Dixon's going to go. He's going way up to the high side.
Going to go up to that 3rd lane, open up the lower 2 lanes for the field to go on by. Field, I think, saw the 45 up ahead. Any 3 wide battling in mid-pack to rear of the field settled out to just side by side. They should make their way around him safely. That's a tough break there for Tom Dixon, who had taken the wave around to get back on the lead lap after the first and only caution up to this point, but apparently lost the draft again. I don't believe he got involved. No, he didn't, because he and Bob Dixon had actually been on pit road just before. Yeah, so nowhere near that incident coming to pit lane, so can't be sporting any damage, but might have just been that thing we talk about being that last truck in the pack and not having someone behind you to push you, causing you to lose the draft and subsequently now fall a lap down. Good news is, though, he is right now the only truck 1 lap down. He would be in position for a free pass should we get another caution, and I bring that up because we're not that terribly far away from when these drivers are going to have to pit road again.
You want to jinx it.
Another 5-6 laps, I think. Yep, Bob Dixon coming to pit road. Remember, he pitted about 3-4 laps before everybody else did the last time. So, yeah, we're right on the eve of when these drivers are going to have to pit again.
I'm sitting there looking at Ron Hagel here. He's kind of battling off and on with Dave Cannon behind him, pushing, then side by side with him back and forth. It doesn't seem like he's that bad off with his speed. Maybe a half a mile to a whole mile an hour off at worst, I guess. But he seems to be holding on there pretty well, and David Cannon doing a good job as well, just staying with the pack right now. I mean, of course you want to be up front, but the question right now is, would you rather be out of the race or up front?
Yeah, exactly.
Not out of the race up front, but like, would you rather be in the race or would you be out of the race? I'd rather be in the race somewhere if I'm going to go for points.
Especially with the fact, as we mentioned, with there being 8 races, you got to get every point possible. If the engine's still running, you keep it out there on the racetrack. Even if you go multiple laps down, it's Talladega, it's BSR. If there's a wreck that takes place and drivers are out, you can be a vulture, pick up those spots, pick up those points, and who knows? Further on down the road, when we get ready to put together that playoff grid, it could be the difference into whether you're 1 point to the good or just 1 point on the outside. Speaking of outside, we got an outside line forming there. Dave Melson, Jeremy Jeffries, and Grant Wesley all jumping up there.
I wouldn't say the inside line is probably going to come this time. Probably. That's why they go up there. Sometimes it's like, well, you're going to be out of the way while these guys come into pit. And these guys here are a little bit slower at this point. And there's no... We all know that middle line is where you want to be at. So they're trying to gain what they can before coming to pit road. Maybe they'll stay out an extra lap. Who knows? But, I mean... Look, you look at Tim Knopfler just doing what happened last race with the 17, up front and dominating, and you're just hoping and praying that something doesn't happen again. I mean, we got Grant Wesley that was up here. I thought I saw Seminaire up here somewhere a little earlier with part of this group. Might have been mistaken for another vehicle because Seminaire's got a different scheme now or skin. Now there he is. He's with Despirito in 23rd, 24th. And here we go, Seth. Round 2.
And they all make it down this time. Looks like this group is good. Boy, that was a very aggressive entry to pit road for the 28 of Mark Paglia. Everybody was able to make it on. No spins, no contact. So Group 1 gets it done correctly. It was interesting because I was actually looking to see when we saw Melson and Jeffries and Wesley jump up to the top, he brought up the fact that they were probably going to stay out another lap. And I wondered, how far could they possibly go? Were any of these drivers of the group that came down pit road under the second lap of caution to top off the fuel tank? The only one up in this lead pack that did, the one of Jeremy Jeffries. So absolutely, pretty much everybody else in this front group, they're going to have to pit this time.
And I do want to point out that Paglia, with that entry on pit road that he had, he still comes out behind Tim Knopfler, but he gained a little bit more time. I mean, that was actually a really good pit stop from the 28 machine of Mark Paglia. And back to what you were saying, though, with the pitting, are you getting to a point where, okay, we had a green flag pit stop this last run here. Is this going to be a green flag pit stop, or should we bang on a caution? Because 39 to 66 right now, so think about that right now for those laps.
But if you pitted now, anywhere from 5 to 7 laps short of making it to the finish. So yeah, it's a question of where are we racing to, next yellow or to the next round of green flag pit stops. As we should see this group coming down this time. Here they come. Whoa! 4 wide. Oh,
here they go.
Bernie Mobbs. Oh my gosh. No brakes on the 31. He must have locked them up or something. He got McClure. He got Jeremy Jeffries. I don't think that's going to to bring out a yellow.
It is a caution. Caution is out.
It is a caution. It might have been for the 17 when he got shot up the track.
Because at that point when the incident occurred, Keith Hughes and I don't remember what number machine he was. He turned to the right and got back on track. He didn't hit anything, but the 17 was in front. And he was spinning on the track on the surface from on the bottom to the actual surface of the track. So I'm guessing that the game labeled that as oncoming traffic.
You see everybody here coming through pit road did not stop, did not take service because pit road would be deemed closed and they would end up serving a penalty if they took on service. But wow, 31 of Bernie Mobbs. I'm not certain all of what happened there. I don't know if maybe just the brakes locked up, but he came flying in, and even hitting the back of the 17 of Chuck McClure didn't slow him down. He then went further and got the 1 of Jeremy Jeffries. Let's take a look at it here, because that could have been a lot worse. They were 4 wide, almost 5 wide at one point there, coming onto pit lane too.
Well, this is going to be a game changer.
Here's the 31 of Bernie Mobbs. Now watch this. He's clearly coming to pit road with this group. What all happens? Oh, or was he coming to pit road? It almost looked like he might have been thinking about staying out an extra lap. Kind of boxed in there, got into McClure, who was entering into pit road rather wide. And then it shot the 31 down towards pit lane entry, and he gets into the back of the 1 car.
Well, I'm looking at the info here. Bernie Mobbs posted that he was pitting this lap, so he
Okay,
was
so
coming down to pit.
here's on board. Let's listen to the throttle. The 31 truck. Here's McClure ahead. Wow. Well, I thought it was Jeremy Jeffries that Bernie Mobbs got. He actually got 38 of Dave Melson and then shot him into the one of Jeremy Jeffries, but boy, I'm not necessarily certain. Obviously, we're not in the cockpit of that machine. We don't know all of what led to that, but gracious. Here's another look. See, there were 4 wide there. It was McClure, Cannon, Schilling, and Roberts. Grant Wesley got spun into the infield grass. Jeffrey's facing the wrong way there, gets the thing refired. Dave Melson actually pulled into his pit stall and did take service, so we'll follow up on that. Don't believe he made the commitment line before the caution came out, and we've even seen in the past as well at different tracks that you can make it onto pit road past the commitment cone before the yellow flag comes out, and it still won't allow you to take service. So, like we're having some, I don't know, some scoring issues here of who is where, based
Well,
off of everything that
remember, the
happened
caution
too.
came out while they were making pit stops, coming off the pit stops, and drivers were on track too. And we've
Doug
had a
Kulik
couple of
and
issues before with that, remember?
Doug Kulik and Terry Bombard, looks like they're dropping back. Last time by, Dave Melson was scored as the race leader, but I'm not certain if that's going to stand. Like Wiley Coate may end up being the leader when we go back green, but we'll follow up on that.
I'm curious, was it Bob Dixon and Jim Gloud as the lucky dogs at that point? Or was it Bob and Tom Dixon?
Right now, according to scoring,
It
Bob
says
Dixon,
Jim
Jim
Gloud in there,
Gloud
but
are
what I'm
the
wondering is
first
when
2 trucks 1 lap down.
when we were at that point, I'm wondering if Jim Gloud was part of that, because it seemed like he might have actually been with the pack. I'm not really sure entirely about that right now. And now you see Bernie Mob just labeled as a lap down, Seth.
I might be wrong. I believe Jim Gloud was with the first group that came to pit road. I don't think he was with that group when the incident took place. I could be wrong. I may have missed him in keeping focused on the 31 on our replays, but I believe he did come down with the first group. Did the 72, but they're trying to get things figured out here. They were scoring the 8 with a black flag penalty, the 5 with a black flag penalty. So while they get that all sorted out, we're going to step aside for a quick word from Ultimate Garage Floors and be back here for the restart, which should be in the vicinity of 20 laps to go. The following presentation of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series on the Flatout Racing Network is brought to you by Ultimate Garage Floors. Ultimate Garage Floors is very active in the garage remodeling community, staying current with the latest technologies and custom configurations so that we can bring you the highest quality installations. As a Northern Virginia Exposy flooring installer, we focus on garages and commercial flooring to perfect our craft and bring you high results. In a space that gets as much wear and tear as your garage, you want to be able to trust that the cabinets and flooring we install are ready to withstand against high traffic and regular use. That is why we include a lifetime warranty with our services so that you know we stand behind the quality of our work. To get started with a free consultation, call us at 540-931-9006 or visit us on the web at ultimategaragefloorsva.net. That's ultimategaragefloorsva.net. With the lights out atop the pace truck, looks like it's going to be 22 laps to go here tonight when we finally get them back under green, working our second caution of the evening. It appears that the 45 of Tom Dixon has gone back to the garage area, so that brings the total up to 3 that are back in the infield. Tom Dixon, Sonny Tallman, and Wayne Pribb now. Of the remaining drivers, 34 in total, 33 are on the lead lap. We ended up having Jim Gloud and Bob Dixon get the free passes under this caution. Keith Hughes, I mean, what a story this would be in his debut in the Tally Challenge to pick up his first win of his career and potentially maybe be in the playoffs a little bit further on down the road. He's got Rodney Sullins to his outside, Ken Roberts and Jeff Crivello, they're in row 2, Glenn Harris, Mike Rogers in row 3. Number of drivers up here that are either searching for their first career win in the series, or it's been a while since they've won. I believe for Ken Roberts, it's been about 4 or 5 seasons. For Bernie Mobb, it's been about 3 seasons. And
what about the 10 machine of Terry Bombard and the 6 of Kyle Lawson after their little fun New Year's dirt road racing? And now look where they're at. So they have a chance to kind of make up for that.
And it's so difficult at a super speedway, especially to go coast to coast pole to win. But Wiley Coates started on the pole position tonight, and he's pretty much been inside the top 10 the entirety of this race. So keep an eye on him to maybe see if he can pick up his first victory of the season.
Now, I'm wondering what's going to happen because you got Grant Wesley way in the back here now. And they got a little bit of a checkup up here in the middle line right here where Grant is. But you got Grant, you got Godfrey, Jeffries, Seminara. These guys in the middle. We got Wiley Coat on the high side, 3 wide going to the back. It looks like, unless you can get some other takers up there on that high side with them. But you got Tim Knopf's here 3 wide right now, so he's not up front. How aggravating does this make you feel if you're that 088 machine, knowing that you dominated this whole race, and now you find yourself back there having to fight and claw and wiggle your way up after going 3 wide and having to go inside outside trying to figure out what lane will work and not being able to control it?
Yeah, led 30 laps, and to your point, yeah, the pit stops, the caution coming out when it did is what's put him back in traffic. So we're going to get an idea of just how strong that 088 is. He was able to work his way to the front from the 3rd place starting position in the early going of this race. Now he's got to kind of claw his way a little bit further from where he's at. He's got his wingman, Mark Paglia. Paglia was pretty committed to Tim Knopfsker in the early going. They were running 1-2 for a good majority of the first half of this race. We'll see if those two are able to make something happen. And certainly with them being up front as much as they were in the first half of this race, other drivers have to have taken notice. If they make a move, they're probably going to have some friends that'll go with them.
Well, the question at this point is, who do you want to go with? The guy who was dominating and try to get him back up there, knowing that he's probably going to make all the right moves to get up there? Or do you think he's just too dominating? You want to just go ahead, well, this lane's moving, I'm not going to go with you, I'm just going to pass you because you're a threat. What would you do at that point, Seth? Would you go with the guy who's dominating?
That's the catch-22 of the Super Speedway Series, right? Because you know the drivers that are fast can make the moves, can take you to the front,
right
but
there,
at the
now
same
let's get
time,
to the high side right there, what I was saying right there, making it 3 wide now.
He's picking up Donnie Garrett, but the flip side of the scenario is you might be helping that driver potentially make it into the playoffs, and then you have to face off against them, maybe with the championship on the line. So it's a very kind of almost a yes or no kind of factor of, do I really want to help this guy or do I not want to help this guy? Because it works out for me, but it doesn't work out for me at the end.
Look at that high side go. You got John Godfrey up there too with Jeremy Jeffries. Like you said, Donnie Garrett pushing Tim Knopfsker. And yeah, I mean, you have to wonder, do you really, at the end of the day, I would rather take 2nd than 30th. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If it hurts your pride just a little bit to help someone that you know that you're going to battle in the end, as long as you're getting enough good points to point your way in, or if you get a win, other people get wins and whatnot, and you're kind of like stalled out and you can get in on points, I'd say it's worth it.
Talked to a bunch of the drivers that ran out of fuel last week. I'm sure they would have really taking a second or third place finish over a finish outside of the top 15. We saw Keith Hughes out in front for a moment. Rodney Sullins makes the move to the inside. We've talked with Rodney in the past, and he says, I know I had that one victory back in season 56, where basically there was an EOL for Chuck McClure. I was second, and I ended up getting credited for the win. But he says, I want to go out and I want to be the first truck to the start-finish line. Maybe tonight's the night, as he's going to have to battle hard here with Tim Nofsker. But one thing I observed when Sullins was behind Keith Hughes, I don't know if this will necessarily come into play at the end of this race or even when we come back here in 2 weeks' time, but they were able to two-truck tandem for a brief moment. Rodney Sullins had his front bumper locked to the back bumper of Keith Hughes, and they opened up about a full truck length of daylight back to the rest of the field. You got to wonder if somebody might utilize the two-truck tandem at the end of this race.
Well, the question is, where is that two-truck tandem going to be? Is it going to be on that bottom, middle, or high side? Because, Seth, you and I talked about it. We're noticing that while we were talking at the very beginning of this broadcast about how they're just going to run like the normal Tally Challenge, we have seen it produces great racing. Multiple 3-wide, way many rows deep, which is what we're seeing right now. But we're noticing that there's a specific change with what lane is where you want to be at.
Most part, we've always talked about that middle line being the preferred line, but it almost seems like maybe that third line has been getting a lot more momentum than it has in the past. Even here, the inside line. Nobody ever seems to really want to go to the inside line. If they get to the front, they just ride in the middle line. But there you see the 38 of Sullins, the 56 Crivello, the 55 Ken Roberts, Bernie Mobbs in the 31. They are all right there on that yellow line. And I saw some sparks out from underneath the 31. That was Bernie Mobbs throwing in the clutch. I'm hearing just that these drivers are about 3 laps short of making it to the checkered flag. So a bunch of drivers right now trying to see if maybe they can stretch it to the checkers. But the way they're racing right now, they may not have to worry about it because we're still 3 wide, about 7-8 rows deep.
Yeah, and all it takes is just one little instance, and if that caution comes out, you have to ask yourself, do you want to pit to get like maybe a splash real quick and get back out there? Or do you think you can save 3 laps of fuel under caution?
We saw last week's race come down to fuel mileage. It may be deja vu just 1 week later. A little bit concerning for the 31 being that far up, throwing in the clutch with other drivers behind, or if you can get the communication to everybody else, is it okay to be throwing in the clutch when you've got so many other trucks behind you on that inside line?
Yeah, that's always been an issue with me, is I would sit there and try to throw in the clutch a little bit. If I get a run on someone in front of me and I notice that there's a gap behind me, I'll start getting that run, and then I'll throw in the clutch and let my vehicle get right up on that bumper of the guy in front of me, and then I'll hit the gas again. And I might lose just a little bit of momentum, but I'm still there. But some of these guys are a little bit more talented compared to what I can do with the clutch. They sit there, they half throttle. I mean, I can half throttle, but these guys can half throttle a lot better to save more fuel. So the question is, half throttle or clutch? Which one will be more effective, and which one's going to be the one that saves you the most fuel? Who knows at this point?
And right now, too, if it is a question of being able to make it on fuel or not, yeah, it's great to have that view out in front for Rodney Sullins, but he's using up the most fuel, so it's almost a definite no for him that he would not be able to make it the rest of the way. He would be at this point thinking, I'm safe from the big one, and he'd love to see some crashing in his rearview mirror to make absolutely certain that he can make it on fuel.
You might get it. If you look where the 28 and 8, the 43, and all of them are at the moment with the 3 wide situation stuff, there's a little bit more moving around. Like that bottom wants to push them up, and they're trying to hold a little bit lower off the corner, barely tapping the apron. They're not careful with that apron, and not only it'll keep you down there, it'll actually shoot you back up. And you got these other guys, hey, you're giving me a little bit more room, I'm going to come down just a little bit more, and yeah, that's a little mistake, buddy. You're not giving me enough room. And then, I mean, you see right there Mark Pagley trying to be careful coming up in front of Josh Metallic. I mean, these guys are trying to work with fuel management, but at the same time with this 3 wide battling, they're moving around so much in these corner sets. I don't know. This is very sketchy to me.
John Godfrey, he had a move put on him by Jeremy Jeffries. I mean, at this point in time, nobody's probably going to work with Godfrey since he's already got a win in the bank. Ooh, Cy Jones coming to pit road. Wondering if that was, I don't know if that was planned or not. Looked like it might have been though, but might be thinking come to pit road, get that final pit stop done, maybe catch a caution and stay on the lead lap, gain that track position. We'll wait and see if that pans out for him or not. But to your point, noticing a lot more movement here with this 3 wide, not just on the inside line. I've also been noticing, most notably off of turn 2, drivers up in that 3rd line turning left a lot more to avoid getting up into that outside wall. So if you're in that middle line, you kind of have a convergence on either side. You've got the inside line pushing up on your left, and you got the outside line coming off the wall on your right. So yeah, it seems like these 3 wide formations a little bit more treacherous at this point in time, at least at this racetrack.
No, absolutely. And it gives you an idea of, okay, how do I have to approach this next corner? Because if you're having that issue, there's a good chance someone else is going to have that issue, and that person might be below you or above you. You might be trapped 3 wide. It's like, you know how they always say this is like a chess game, and like a chess match here, and that's really what it is. You're not just worried about points. You're not just worried about, oh, well, I'm 4th or I'm 5th. This is basically a chess match of, if this card does this, if this card does that, where do I need to be? You have to try to sit there and think 3 or 4 moves ahead before you even get there while being aware of the moment.
You know, it's interesting too, something that we haven't talked about yet, and we won't be for a couple of weeks, but
the bracket.
Preliminary talking, exactly. These drivers, they're battling to be in the top 24 in the point standings, because that would then determine the seeding in the bracket series here this season. So, you know, that'll be interesting to kind of watch.
You're already starting
races as well.
Aren't you? You're starting drama already, Seth.
I am. I mean, that's the thing. That's the beauty about this particular series, though. It's not just race every week to try and get a checkered flag. We always talk about the race within the race. They do this a lot in a lot of their series. Bare Bones, they've got the Challenger series. I believe they do the same thing in the Aero 88 series on Wednesday nights. It always gives everybody, no matter your experience level, no matter where you're usually running the field, gives you something to race for.
We need to talk to Ted Turner and see if we can't coin that copyright of FRN. We know drama.
We know
drama. Really close between Doug Hewlick and Terry Bombard. Doug wanted to come down and get that spot to get in line, and Terry was there, and Terry didn't, Terry was already there. It's like, no, buddy, I'm already here, I'm sorry. And then Doug shot way up the track, so worried that, he was about to cause a wreck, and just that one little bobble cost him almost 2 spots, and now he's trying to get in line now behind Kyle Lawson in the system. Look at that. Terry's trying to clutch here, trying to save a little bit more. That's what they're trying to do back here, and meanwhile, up front and stuff, they're just, I don't even think they're trying to clutch. They're like half throttling, or they're going full throttle up here.
Radio's lighting up. We got some drivers pitting. Nofsker's coming in. Brian Schilling, Joe DeSpirito. You got about a good maybe dozen drivers coming onto pit road, knowing they cannot make it.
All safe.
They're all going to make it onto pit road safely, but the question is, will the speeding police be enforcing anything here? You really don't want to mess up on the money stop because you're effectively throwing away a good finish. I was hearing that they're about 4 to 5 laps short of, or 4 or 5 laps away from making pit stops, rather, before that first group came onto pit road. You know what that is, Jess? That's around the point of no return. Remember when Grant Wesley, we didn't know if he was going to make it on fuel that one race, and he clutched the 3 pacing laps during the point of no return to win under yellow.
Why are you trying to jinx
Because
races?
that's a scenario that could happen. It could absolutely happen here. There's Terry Bombard coming onto pit lane. You talked about him clutching. Apparently he knows he can't make it.
You really are trying.
Someone could roll the dice. Somebody could try that scenario. Maybe catch a caution at just the right time and be able to clutch and save enough to be able to putt their way around and pick up the checkers.
If one person hears you and they say, well, that's a good idea, I'm going to do that, and they do that and they win, they're going to love you forever. But then you're going to have like 30 plus other drivers that are going to hate you forever for actually saying something. So you better make sure you're counting your chickens and get that wheel already made out.
The only driver I can remember that stole our secrets from broadcast was Robert Balcom, and he's not in the field.
Well, some of these guys do watch the broadcast.
That's true.
What I'm wondering right now is Crevello. Crevello's up there leading this field, and I don't know how much longer he's going to be able to hold on before he has to come in.
About 5 drivers on pit road. Ronnie Sullivan's giving up the lead. Ken Roberts, Dave Melson, last week's winner John Godfrey, and
Keith
Mike
Hughes up here.
Rogers.
Keith Hughes up here behind Grant Wesley, so I thought saying something. Josh Metallic there, Donnie Garrett, Jeremy Jeffries. I think, where is Cy Jones at? Where is he labeled at right now?
1 lap down and 34th.
Now,
He actually came to pit road, remember, about 3
I
laps
know, but
prior.
I'm trying to figure out where he would be at compared to everyone else who's pitting right now.
That's a good question. I mean, the good news is he was able to merge with this lead group, so he might be able to pick up a couple of spots as Glenn Harris got on the apron there through 3 and 4. Does anyone come to pit road this time?
Noxker's right here leading this group with others.
Robbie Nisus nearly loses it, locked up the brakes, but he gets it pointed back in the right direction. Uh-oh. Glenn Harris got into the back of Kelly, causing the 0-0. That might end up causing the 0-0 to have a speeding penalty.
No caution.
No yellow, as you see Tim Nofsker
with the Spirito
moving their way around. I believe we had Doug Hulick in the 23. Did he come down pit road with this group? No, he stayed out. So he, I believe, is the last driver we are waiting on to come down pit road to complete this cycle. And I think you'd have to look at that 088 maybe of Nofsker to maybe cycle around as the leader. Here comes that group off pit road, Grant Wesley. There you see Nofsker up on the top of your screen.
Yeah, Hulick's coming in. He can't stay out no longer.
Hulick's going to give up the race lead. When he crosses the line, we should be at 3 laps to go. And now it's this pack versus the pack behind them, barreling down Nofsker, DeSpirito in that group, as well as Chuck McClure, Richard Martin, and Brian Schilling. Looks like we'll have about maybe 11, 12 trucks in this lead group to battle it out for the checkers.
And it all comes down to
look at the blocks. Look at the blocks. Oh my gosh. 4 wide, 2 rows deep, and there goes Nofsker around. Who's going to get through? It's DeSpirito and Wesley that are going to battle to the stripe. It looks like DeSpirito is clear. And Joe DeSpirito is going to come to take the caution flag, potentially the checkered flag. Wait, no! The 24 is being scored in second for me.
Yeah, because Hewlett crossed the line.
Hewlett crossed the line as the leader.
Well,
Doug Hewlett, I think, is the leader.
Where's Hewlett at?
I think when Hewlett came to pit road, he left pit lane, crossed the start-finish line to complete lap 64 before Joe DeSpirito got up there. I believe Doug Hewlett is still the leader of this race.
Did we just have a Roush moment for pit road?
Oh my gosh.
Did we just have a Jeff Burton moment?
I think we did. Yeah, he's waiting for the pace car to pick him up. Doug Hewlett's call to stay out that extra lap further than everybody else got him to the start-finish line first after he had taken his service. The wreck off of Ford, they couldn't make it back in time. He crossed the line 6 seconds before Joe DeSpirito even got there.
I'm looking at him on pit road right now, Seth. I can tell you from personal experience, he took a splash, and then he went out. He took a splash for a half, but I think he took a splash compared to a half a can. And he took a splash. Splash usually can last you about 2 laps maximum. And he's got plenty of time to clutch. So
he had the number 12 pit stall because he qualified in the 12th position. So
he was already passed.
Yeah. Up close to the front of pit road.
The only one who passed him was David Cannon, and he was a lap down machine at that point.
This is incredible. This is unbelievable.
What did I say?
His time will come.
Did you
expect it was going to be tonight under these circumstances?
I said last week that I'm thinking it would come sooner than later, and look what happened.
It's 2 to go. We're going to take the opportunity here to go back, look at the replay of what happened with Nofsker, and then we're going to look at the pit stop of the 23.
I'd like to see that incident, Tom. Wait, it was with Nofsker, you said?
It was Nofsker in the 088. I'm not certain who got into the back of him. There was a lot of blocking that was going on. Metallic went up and blocked. McClure went down and made it 4 wide. It was maybe the 24 of DeSpirito. Oh no, it was Crevello pushed up the track, got into the side of Nofsker. They were 4 wide there. Donnie Garrett goes for a wild ride. McClure spinning through the infield grass. And, oh, Dave Melson gets involved there. Kyle Lawson just barely avoids. And then this was the winning move of the race. The 23. All this is going on. This wreck's taking place. And watch right here. The pace truck lights are on. Pace truck's leaving, and there is Hewlick. Start-finish line is right there. And you'll see on the top of your screen, there is Despirito coming into view. Hewlick was the first one to the line, albeit coming off pit road, to receive the caution flag, and subsequently is going to end up winning this race.
Yeah, I mean, aside from Hewlick, I mean, this was a very, very interesting finish. That's how I'm just going to label it. So this was an interesting finish. You had Hewlick with that, but you had a huge fight for that last moment push. You had Metallic trying to make a move. You had Knox trying to make a move 4 wide at that one point.
Yeah, 4 wide, 2 rows deep.
Do you think they even realized that Doug Hewlick was even there?
Maybe not until they crossed the start-finish line. I didn't even know, to be honest. I was expecting to see on my scoring the 24 up to P1. When I saw him P2, I was trying to figure out who was ahead of him, and then it dawned on me that Hewlick had stayed out that extra lap.
And I hate to say this, but I mean, not a really good run for some of these guys due to the incident and pit road issues and whatnot. You have Donnie Garrett back there, Bob Seminara. Good job for Grant Wesley having that big comeback, like compared to the first race, coming back to finish top 5 in this race, podium, I believe is what he's going to get. Schilling comes home with it. And what about the 82 of Keith Hughes, Seth? And look at Dorsey. Dorsey finished 12th. You
got Keith Hughes in 6th, and you've also got Tate Dorsey finishing in the 12th position.
Yeah.
So good showing for both of those drivers. Saw Keith out in front for a few laps in this race. He led a total of 6 circuits. So great job by both of those drivers here, and I'll certainly hope to see them back in the coming weeks to try and maybe battle for a playoff position. Yeah, they missed 1 race, but I think you can maybe make up enough points in 7 races to get up in the top 12 in points.
Hey, all I want to say is one word. Actually, 2 words together. Grant Wesley. Remember
exactly.
that.
Exactly. Missed the first 3 races of that season?
Then he ran to come back, and I think he won his first one he came back in, or the last one before the playoffs started, and ended up working his way in, I believe, or something like that.
Well, he won his way in, but yeah, I think he ended up, after 3 races, he was 33rd in points, if I recall correctly. By the end of the regular season, he was up, I think it was 8th in the standings. He didn't even need the wins. He actually pointed his way into the playoffs. So yeah, definitely a possibility for Keith Hughes and Tate Dorsey, but boy, when we talked with Doug Hewlick last week, he got the podium finish, but he was 3rd. And you could just hear the dejection in his voice. He knew he was so close to getting that victory, but it was the 2nd time in his career that fuel had come around to bite him. This time, fuel strategy works in his favor in one of the most bizarre type of finishes you'll ever see at a Talladega type track. And I cannot wait for this upcoming interview, because Doug Hewlick is about to pick up what I believe is his first career win in the Talladega Challenge Series. Race number 2 of season 58 belongs to driver 23.
And like we've said before, it couldn't happen to a better guy who's been trying so hard, and he actually made it work tonight. Kind of got robbed in a way in the first race, comes back. Redemption, Seth. Complete redemption. Satisfaction.
That he took a splash. That was enough to be able to make it the 2 laps.
I think it was a splash.
Is it enough for a burnout?
No. If it is, I'll be surprised. Man, he might have clutched them during the caution, but I highly doubt that. He's probably getting close to running out on the backstretch as we speak. Probably.
Here you see the congratulatory bumps. Whoop, a little too aggressive of a bump there from Richard Martin. But man, what a start to the year!
Yeah, I was about to mention that we got Godfrey in victory lane, we got Doug Hewlick in victory lane. Are we going to go 3 for 3? You think? And are we going to go 3 for 3 for not familiar faces up here? I mean, Godfrey has had a win before, but we don't really get a chance to see him get it because of incidents that happened that are not to his own doing. Doug Hewlick, I mean, what is going to happen next week, Seth? We
Here's the
don't
thing,
even
too.
know.
The landscape, I feel, is going to continually change here because we're so used to there's about a dozen drivers that we can name that we see up at the front winning races week after week after week. We have to remember though that the drivers that finish consistently in the top 10, the top 15, they are constantly going to school. They are constantly learning from some of the best in the business. And I think here in season 58, in the case of Godfrey and now here in the case of Doug Hewlick, they're putting it to work. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see another somewhat unfamiliar face take another checkered flag next week. That this might be the trend that we're setting here for season 58, and it's putting more pressure on the drivers that we're normally used to seeing get these checkered
And
flags.
I want to point out, remember what we said at the beginning: 8 races.
Right.
We've had 2 unfamiliar faces show up in victory lane that have proven their worth. I mean, good drivers all the less, but I mean, you're sitting there, they got to win. Doug Hewlitt, John Godfrey. Guess what? That's 6 races left. Time's ticking. The races keep dwindling away, Seth. Not much time left to get yourself set up.
That's also 6 races of worry-free for both John Godfrey and Doug Hewlick. They now just really have to worry about keeping themselves in the top 25 in the point standings, and they know that they will be battling for a playoff position. Standings are indeed official. Here, the top 5, Hewlick, the winner, Despirito in second. Wesley brings it home third. Metallic fourth. Brian Schilling fifth. So Hewlick being tailed by a number of former champions there, including the defending champ Brian Schilling. Mentioned about Keith Hughes, great run there for his debut. Crivello, good run there in seventh, as he was out in front for a good number of laps. Rodney Sullins in eighth. Jeremy Jeffries ninth, and Richard Martin going to complete the top 10. But as you look down here through the remainder of the results, you mentioned it, the fact that a lot of the bigger names down here that may or may not have had good runs last week, not having the runs they were looking for here tonight. Of course, Tim Nofsker, Donnie Garrett involved in that incident there that brought out the last caution. Chuck McClure, yep, Seminara down there. Ken Roberts, not sure what happened to the 55, but he was up there in the top 5, I think, when they began the cycle of pit stops. He's back in 26th. Mark Paglia, he and Nofsker were working together a good portion of this race. He's back in 29th position. Poor performance there as well for Bernie Mobbs in the 31. And then a few drivers out of the race. David Cannon actually retired out of the race under those final pacing laps. Tom Dixon, Sonny Tallman, and Wayne Pribnow did not make it to the finishes. We had 3 cautions for 11 laps in this 66 lap event, but wow, what a race here tonight. What a finish, and what a bunch of storylines we've got heading into Talladega next week.
Yeah, and I really appreciated calling the action with you tonight and look forward to next week. And unfortunately, I'm not going to stick around and be able to be with the top 3 for the interviews and give my thoughts, etc., on and on and on about it. But congratulations to Doug Hewlitt and the top 3 finishers. And Seth, I will see you later on. And I'm sorry, but I'm kind of feeling under the weather.
Yep, that's perfectly fine. Appreciate you joining the booth tonight. Looking forward to next week.
All right, see you next week. I'm Seth.
And we'll see if we can dial up our top 3 finishers. Want to commend Jess for fighting through it here tonight. I've broadcasted before, commentated before when I'm sick. It's not an easy thing to do, folks. So a great job by her here this evening. Appreciate her fighting through it to be able to help me bring you guys tonight's broadcast. Let's see if we can now dial up some of our podium finishers. Let's kick things off with the guy who brings it home, P3, Grant Wesley. Grant, Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got me?
Yeah, I got you.
Well, man, I'll tell you what. First off, I want to get your thoughts of what we saw there out of turn 4 because we knew that you guys could hold it 3 wide. We saw it several rows deep in the early portion of this race. But for a split second, you guys were 4 wide, 2 rows deep. Did you guys, at that point in time, the way you were racing, think you were battling for the win? Or was it until you got to the start-finish line you realized, oh, wait, the 23 actually was the first one to the line?
Yeah, so that definitely got intense there. I can tell you my perspective. I was just coming off pit road with Crivello and Metallic, and I think it was Donnie. So we had a group of 4. Going down the backstretch, I called out over TeamSpeak. I said, I'm going to run the bottom here because I knew that there'd be another pack coming. The bottom's been really good all night, and I figured if the 4 of us lined up on the bottom, we would be able to defend pretty good from there. Going into 3, I seen Crivello basically, he took that as an open invite just to go around me. So you see me move up the track a little bit as we get towards the middle of 3 and 4, and he was just going to stick to the outside. So at that point, I was going to move back down low. As we came off the corner, I'm looking at the replay, and Donnie and that second group that was coming, they went up to the outside, the far outside wall. We were 4 wide, and then Donnie, he had a run at him and Chuck, and they went down to the very bottom, or Donnie did, and we were just 4 wide coming off that corner. And it looks like maybe the 088 was just trying to, just keep it as tight as he could, and him and Carvillo got together. Not really sure who's at fault there, but it was just tight racing.
Now, you mentioned about the fact here tonight that inside line was actually able to work. That's not something we're very used to when we run the Talladega that we ran last week and we've seen during the course of the past seasons. As a driver, what were some of the similarities and also some of the differences that you saw between BSR here tonight and Talladega that we'll be going to again next week?
So there's very slight differences between the 2 tracks. It's pretty much the exact same track. And it races identical. There are a few slight differences, like the bottom, for whatever reason, it just seemed to be pretty strong tonight. Like, you could really hold your own down there. And I noticed I had 2 or 3 instances where I was having trouble sucking up in the middle if I was like the 5th or 6th truck back, if I didn't have someone quiet on my back bumper. So, yeah, it's pretty much the same other than that, though.
So obviously, another race that came down to fuel strategy, back-to-back races here to start off the season. Last week didn't work out quite in your favor. You ran out of fuel going into turn 3, didn't get the finish you wanted. Here tonight, kind of gaining back a lot of the points that you lost. Now, I know that every time I ask you this question, you say, I want to be that first one to the checkered flag. But here tonight, were you looking more just to kind of have a little bit of a recovery race from last week, or were you still looking at that checkered flag as the ultimate opportunity to be able to gain back the points you lost?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I wanted a win, but I needed a top 5. After last week, I'm not sure if you're aware, I got a penalty post-race for causing an incident on pit road I wasn't 100% sure about. So, that happens from time to time. I feel like a knucklehead. I was a DNQ for this race, so I started on the tail. I took my medicine, and I'm just glad I was able to get a top 3. But like I said, I really wanted that win.
Well, Grant, obviously a great performance for you here tonight. Another solid finish up inside of the top 3. With being early on in the season, the points close together. This should definitely leapfrog you up through the point standings. It'll be interesting to see where it finally has you scored heading into the upcoming next race. We know that obviously, too, there's a more greater sense of urgency for you drivers to find victory lane with there only being 8 regular season races. So we look forward to seeing what you do here for the remainder of this first half of the regular season. Before we let you go, though, the floor is yours for some thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Yeah, real quick, kudos to the administration on the changes for this season. I, for one, am pretty excited about the 2 race to end it. I think that'll be kind of neat to watch. But yeah, definitely, certainly right about the urgency, needing to get some points to get back inside the top 12. Congratulations to Doug Hulick. Man, that's freaking awesome getting that first win. I know he's really excited. I can't wait to hear you guys talk to him. I'd like to thank you guys, Flatout Racing Network, Seth, and I know Jessica was up in the booth for a while. Thank you guys for doing what you do. I'd like to thank the admins here, Josh, Wiley, and Tim. I'd like to thank my teammates at XFM, my friends and family for watching, and my girlfriend, Brittany.
That's Grant Wesley, 3rd place performance here tonight. He'll look to keep this momentum up heading down the remainder of the regular season. Congrats on the great run there, Grant. Best of luck next week.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it.
Of course, next week we will be heading back to Talladega. It's a flip-flop back and forth between Talladega and BSR. Just a little disclaimer, too. We're more than likely going to be calling this track BSR more often than not. It's just a little bit easier to roll off the tongue than Burnt Screwdriver's Raceway constantly here in our commentary. Grant Wesley, the points are in, did gain 16 spots in the standings. He is 17th in points heading into next week. Another driver that gained a number of spots in the standings, up 6 from his 10th standings position now to 4th, is the 2nd place driver that we're about to talk to, and that's Joe DeSpirito. Hey, Joe, it's Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got me?
I got you. How you doing, man?
Well, man, I'll tell you what. Here tonight, coming into this race, we weren't exactly certain what we were going to see. We know that this is a reskin Talladega. We know that a lot of its characteristics are similar to the Talladega track that we've seen season after season, but it kind of looked like there were slight differences. Drivers struggling getting onto pit road. It looked like the inside line was a little bit more dominant. So, with that being said, what kind of adjustments do you think you're going to have to make here during the course of this season? Because it looked like here tonight you made the adjustments good, but almost like possibly two different varying tracks in terms of how you have to approach it.
Yeah, like you said, it's kind of the same track, but it's not. The lanes are kind of wider in a way. I guess they're all equivalent. All three are exactly the same. Um, on the other track, the inside line is a lot narrower. So you widen this one, it gives the bottom lane more room to kind of push up, and it makes the outside line, that much more further away from the inside line. So that's naturally going to make the inside line more dominant. And you know, with the little bit of steering assist you have on your car, it kind of makes you. It thinks like you're racing the old track. It doesn't really worry about these new painting lines on the ground, so it's kind of pulling you on top of the lines. So you kind of have to readjust everything. And I decided to change my steering ratio a little bit just during practice, and I felt like that kind of helped me. But it's definitely different in a way. It's the same but different, if you know what I'm saying.
I'm not going to lie, the broadcast will show. I thought that the battle we saw with yourself and about seven other drivers there off of turn four when that wreck occurred, that was the battle for the win. Did not realize until after you crossed the start finish line that there was one driver ahead of you in the 23 of Doug Kulik. Did you know the scenario at that point that you guys were basically battling for second, trying to catch that 23 if the thing had gone green to the end? Or was it not until after you crossed the start finish line you realized as well that you were P2?
Yeah, I don't think anybody knew that Doug was up there. Everybody thought, I think, that was going to be for their win. I thought I won going through the trial on Whisper, and I'm celebrating. And no, I mean, I saw that he was in the lead after we crossed the start finish line, and I thought maybe he hadn't pit yet, or he wasn't going to make it on fuel. But he ended up timing his pit stop perfectly to where he came out right in front of us at the perfect time. And yeah, I think we all thought I won, and then Doug came out and won. So I think that's his first career win. I'm not sure, so congrats to him. Yeah, I think they all thought I won. That was nuts at the end there.
Well, last year you went to victory lane very early on in the season, the second race, securing yourself a playoff spot. That was a season that had 10 regular season races. The announcement made during the offseason that now we've whittled it down to only 8 regular season races. So, how much more of a sense of urgency is there on a driver like yourself to find victory lane and secure that playoff spot via win? Or are you more focused on consistency to just make sure you're inside the top 12 in points to advance into the championship battle that way?
Maybe a little bit of mixture of both. Maybe a little bit more consistency. Yeah, the 8 races kind of makes it to where you got to show up every week. You go on vacation and you miss a race, or you have an emergency and you miss a Thursday night or something like that. It's really going to take more of a toll on your point situation. And they kind of cushion that with the 12 instead of the 10 drivers. But um, yeah, it's a mad dash to get to the playoffs now. And yep. So like I said, it's kind of in between for me, consistency and win. Like I said, I thought I won tonight, and would have been just like last season, second race of the year. But we'll see how it goes. First season with this new format.
Back-to-back top tens to start the season. Second place here tonight, and now up into the top 5 in the point stand. So good start to the year for you here, Joe. Going to be looking forward to seeing how you continue on here in this regular season. See if we'll find that 24 in victory lane before the playoff points are reformatted. Before we let you go, though, the floor is yours for some thank you sponsors and shoutouts.
Thanks, Seth. I want to thank you. I want to thank FRN. You guys are doing a good job on the broadcast, as always. RTG. Um, I want to thank my boys, Mobs Motors, FTMF. Thank everybody watching at home, family. Thank my sponsors, Old City Fly Shop at St. Augustine, Florida. My buddies at work watching every night. LC, Dan, Pat, all those guys watching. And dude. And yeah, that's everybody. Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it.
That's Joe DeSpirito, your second place finisher here tonight at BSR. Once again, congratulations on the great run. Best of luck next week at Dega.
Thanks, man. Good night.
And let's see if we can go down to victory lane and talk with Doug Hewlick. I believe Joe's correct. I believe this is his first career win in the Tally Challenge. Doug, it's Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got a copy?
What's up there, Sethster? How are you, sir?
I will tell you what, man, what a last couple of weeks it has been for you. Fuel has been kind of the story with you in this 23 truck. Last week, 5/100 short of the start finish line to pick up that victory, sputtering crossing the line. Here tonight, I'll tell you, we've called a number of races, a number of seasons here for the Tally Challenge. We've seen just about every way that a driver can pick up a checkered flag. I think this might be the first time that we've seen this kind of a scenario, though. I mean, what was the range of emotions going through your mind there when you realized the caution came out at just the right time for you to cross the line coming off pit road to end up winning this event?
Well, to be 100% honest with you, I didn't know. I actually thought I was like, I was going to pass the pace car. I was like, I got screwed on this one. I'm a lap down. I'll just catch to the back of the field. I'm finishing 33rd or whatever. And I passed pace car, and the guys were yelling, "Hey, you can't pass a pace car." I'm like, "Why?" He says, "Because you're in first." I'm like, what?
Well, I mean, obviously, it all came down to that call that you made to be one of the last onto pit road. You stayed out one lap longer than everybody else. What was the strategy in your mind there? Was it maybe to catch a caution, maybe be able to clutch enough under pacing there at the end of the race? Was it thinking that maybe, just maybe, you would be able to come to pit road, do that splash and go, and get out there ahead of everybody else? I mean, what was the mindset there for that strategy? Because at first, I wasn't certain if it was going to work or not. It might not have if we had continued to go green.
Oh, I believe that it would not have, because when I mean that whole run I was clutching and bit, and lifting and just trying to conserve as much. And I knew everybody was going in, and then the second time by everybody was going in, and I said, "Anybody staying out?" And the seventh said, "I'm staying out." And I got behind him, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, we're going so slow." I don't know whether he was damaged or if he was just, what. And then I was like, for sure, thought lost the race now. There's no way in anything I'm going to come even close. And then I said, I'm just going to for a splash. Drove in there, got the splash, looked down, and it was one lap short. So I was done. I was, I cooked my goose at that point. But unfortunately or fortunately, my fellow was wrecked. And I pulled off the win for the 23 Toyota Coker College car.
A great start to the year for you, back-to-back podium finishes. You're subsequently the points leader going into next week. But more importantly now, with this victory, you just got to worry about staying in the top 20 in the point standings, and you're going to be battling in the playoffs. So now for these final 6 races of the regular season, what's the goal for this 23 truck?
Yeah, I just look, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to run up front, and if you start thinking, I'm just going to play cautious and just try to, cruise through these next races, you'll end up just getting racked out. So, I mean, you just got to stay the course, um, you know, keep trying to make the best moves you can, stay out of trouble, avoid anybody else wrecking going in the pit. There's all sorts of things you can do to avoid it, but, it's just racing and it's fun.
I'll tell you, there was another series we broadcasted where I was accused for having a crystal ball. I'll let you know, Jess here tonight actually said that 23 truck, his time will come. Little did she know it was going to be happening here tonight at BSR. But Doug, congratulations on a well-deserved victory. What a strategy call there at the end. Unbelievable fashion to be able to pick up your first career win. Before we let you go and continue your celebration, though, we're handing the mic over to you for some Victory Lane thank you sponsors and shout-outs.
Cool. So, I do drive the Coker College 23 Toyota Tundra. On the back of it is number 10, which is my daughter. She plays first base down there. She's having a little rough year this spring. She hurt her ankle, and 2 days ago she got a little mild concussion from a ricocheted ball. So I'm just giving a shout out to Bailey down there in Hartsville, South Carolina, working her hardest to do well. Thank Rodney for painting me that car with all of her stuff on it. Josh and the gang for running a great show. My brother Ray for letting me deal with Afterburner and getting my wings back under me, playing out here. The boys who run Saturday, Fridays, the Talladega Nights boys. I mean, we got all sorts of people. But, I wanted to say, I wanted to thank the guys in the motor shop and built me a nice motor. But realistically, we all know this is just a simulator. But it's all good, and I'm tickled. I really am. It's just way over the top crazy thinking.
Well, it may be a simulator, but a win is still a win. And Doug Hewlett gets the first of his career here in the Talladega Challenge here tonight at BSR Super Speedway. Congratulations, Doug, on a job well done. It's going to be a lot of fun to see what you do here for these final 6 races in preparation for the playoffs.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it, my brother. Have a good night.
So as the celebration continues for one Doug Hewlett, that is going to end our coverage here tonight. Again, what a start to the year. John Godfrey, who up until the start of this season only had one other victory that, if I remember correctly, I said stretched back to, I believe it was 2021. I might be wrong, and it might have been early 2022, but it had been a long time since he had gone to victory lane. He finally finds a checkered flag once again, and Doug Hewlett, what a start to the year there. Came up just short on fuel last week, and here tonight, fuel strategy and a timely caution are his best friend to pick up the checkered flag. 2 drivers have clinched themselves spots in the playoffs via win. There's still 6 more races during the regular season for drivers to be able to do the same. And of course, the top 12 in the point standings, also a goal for drivers to be able to make their way into the battle for the championship. Of course, too, that bracket series is going to be starting up in a few weeks' time, so drivers will be trying to get into the top 24 in the point standings as next week we head back to Talladega Super Speedway, the track we were at last week, and we'll be back here at BSR in 2 weeks' time. But once again, my thanks to Jessica Shelton for joining me here tonight, fighting through the sickness. Appreciate that out of her. She and I'll be back in the booth next week to bring you coverage of race number 3 for season 58 of the RTG Talladega Challenge. Green flag next Thursday night will fly at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But thank you all so much for tuning in here tonight. Thank you to Ultimate Garage Floors for the sponsorship of this series. And you've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope